Hi, and I'm going to give you some quick instructions on a progress monitoring chart that I created. I'm a special ed teacher and I needed a visual representation of the I thank Mr. Calvin Creech because it was his vision and direction that helped me create the chart, and Miss Lisa Stoll, who was my supervising teacher at the time and was a wonderful influence. So I was asked to do a task of creating a visual representation of the data that we collected for our students with their IEP progress monitoring goals. But this chart could also be used for RTI and the STAT process, or really any collection of data that you may want. I'll give you a couple of Excel tips. A lot of teachers who are using this have never opened Microsoft Excel in their lives, so please don't be intimidated. I tried to make it as user-friendly as possible so that anybody could use it. Down here at the bottom are called sheets. I call them tabs. I don't know why, but I think officially they're called sheets. And you have your goals. I tried to do quite a few, but I'll show you how to create more if you want more. And I do have a little instruction file here if you want to ever look back and read the instructions. But hopefully this video, I learned better with videos and decided I should practice what I preach and actually make a video to show everybody how to make this chart. So the first thing you should know is that anything in yellow, anything highlighted in yellow here is something that you have to input, and anything in white should be locked. So you shouldn't have to feel afraid that you're going to mess something up. So for instance, if I wanted to type over that was not a good example. If I wanted to change this, it will say the cell or chart you're trying to change is protected. So the important features that the chart might have are going to hopefully be protected, so you won't have to mess anything up or feel like you have to mess anything up. I guess I left these open in case you wanted to input dates or something like that. My original chart actually had dates, had weekly dates in here, but it was confusing for some people if they started tracking data in the middle of the month. So this was just a simpler way to do it. Okay, so up here is our header information, and for instance, I'm going to change the school year from 2015 to 2016-2017. And what you should know is that once I've changed things here on goal 1, a lot of information, all the key information is going to change in your other tabs. So for instance, I'll hit undo, click undo. That was 2015-2016. All my tabs say 2015-2016. I'll click redo because I changed it to 2016-2017, and now all my tabs have that. So that will be true for entering the student's name, the teachers. The goal obviously is specific to this goal. So whatever you put here in this cell is not going to go into goal 2 because that will be different verbiage. Same with analysis and comments. But dates, let's say I just had my ARC meeting and so I want to create a new chart and it's February. Now, if you type in the word February, even though it's showing February as text, you're going to get these values. So in order to set up my Excel chart with the formulas correctly, this actually has to be a number, has to be the month. So you could do 2/1/16. And now everything converts to text. You could also do dashes if you like to do 2/1/16, and if you're very specific and you want to actually put in 2016, you can do that as well. So any of those sort of date formats will work in converting this. And so now I have March, April, May. All of my subsequent goals have now also changed to starting with February. They were, again, I'll hit undo. I have to undo a few times because I made some changes. You can see originally they started with August, so they are now starting with February. That's when I showed you how to do it the wrong way. Okay, there. This is where you input your actual weekly data that you're tracking. So let's say they got a 20%, a 50%, a 35%, and then 100%. They really improved. Here's your average. If you don't have 5 weeks in the month, then just leave that one blank. That is fine. I tried to set it up so that you could start your tracking on any month, and so I tried to make it generic. That's the easiest way I could think of to set it up. Down here you can see that we also have to fill things in. So we'll start with February. Now this is set up to track in Madison County in Kentucky. We also track students' eligibility for extended school year services, and so I was asked to incorporate breaks in instruction so that we could analyze the data to see if the student wasn't able to maintain their progress because of a break in instruction. They weren't able to maintain recoup, or maybe they've regressed, and if they've regressed with a lot of their goals, then we might recommend an extended school year instruction opportunity for them. So this is set up to include 3 major breaks of instruction. So in order to set your months up of the year correctly here, you'd have to have 3 breaks of instruction. So for instance, we've got February, March, and then we have spring break. So I type in break, April. I want to show you while I'm typing, you might be noticing that down here is automatically filling. So you don't have to retype that. And again, of course, as I'm typing it in my goal 1, it's automatically filling into these subsequent goals. And same with this area here, which is why this is no longer yellow. It's not something you need to fill in because it's populated here from goal 1. So we'll continue. We've got May, and then we have summer break. Oops, that already said break for me. Then we start back in August, September, October. Now here's a quick trick in Excel. If you're interested, you can take your cursor, and when it becomes this crosshair, you can left click on your mouse and drag, and then that will actually add a month. You can do it that way too. Then we have a break. That won't work for your breaks, of course, but that's just a little tip for you. Now we have gone a full year from February through January. Hopefully I'm talking, so hopefully I spelled everything correctly as I type. This area here is actually for the student's benchmark goal, the expectation that you've set for the student. So for instance, we might want the student to achieve an 80% level. You can put in whatever number you want here. So for instance, we want them to achieve 80% every single month. Okay, so as I'm typing in the goal, the Excel chart below, the bar chart, is creating a trend line, which our trend line is flat because we're just putting in the same 80% goal here, but these little red marks indicate a trend line. Now, it may be, if you're in a different county or state, you would want some growth. You might, I don't know, have different ways of doing things. So now you can see then there's a trend line. Obviously for a break, we don't have a goal for the student because they're on break. So that looks like that. This does not fill in because if for each individual goal you may have a different expectation for the student. That is that. Once you start putting your data, so for instance here is 51%, we do have to carry this number down here, that's why it's yellow. And that's really because I couldn't set up formulas here again to account for how breaks were going to be filled in different spots depending on when we start our tracking. So if I created the chart and just left all the months the same, then I could do that, but I think it's a better tool this way, but it does mean you have to manually input your percent. So for instance, we'll put in 51% here. And now we have an actual data point. We show that the student in February achieved a 51%. So then you could have 60%, and then maybe that goes down to 20. So the point of the break here is to show that we had a break in instruction and they really lost their ability to accomplish that skill after the instruction, and then maybe they'll recoup it and get back up to 60% after a few weeks or so, or whatever it might take. And that's the chart. I've had a couple of questions. Some common questions I've had is, let me show you here. This is goal, and it says number because this bar chart is percentages, and this is number because I have reading fluency goals for students, and that would be a words correct per minute. And so in this case, for instance, maybe they read 85 words and then 65 words and then 100 words. And so their average for February was 83 words correct per minute. And I just started that chart instead of percentages as a number. And then maybe their goal is 125 words per minute. So then there would be their goal line / trend line. I guess it's not really trend line because it's data that you're making up, not real data, but hopefully you get the point. So if you wanted to change this to say goal number 2, for instance, you would double click on the words here, and then you could just enter in goal 2. Goal 2 is already taken, so we'll say it's goal 11. But if you wanted to avoid that, then you could just change goal 2 to be called something else. If you wanted, now the other ones, the goal 3, for instance, actually says goal 3. If you wanted to have that say goal 11 or whatever your goal could be, you could click on it once and then come up here to this window and do 11 like that, and then it populates there. Or you could click on this. This is column A and row 6. So this is A6. You could also just double click on here and edit it that way as well. Okay. So each one of these is a cell. And for instance, this cell is in column C, but the text is centered across numerous other columns. So that's why it's made this big rectangle instead of a little rectangle. Anyways, the other common question that people have asked is, can I add goals? And you can. You can just right click, move or copy, do create a copy, and then I like to move it to the end because it usually makes sense to put it there, but you could click anywhere where you would possibly want it inserted. You can do move to end. And now you have goal 11, and then it's got a little 2 here. Again, you might want to just change that to goal 12 or however you want to do it. And then you would change it up here as well. Okay, so I didn't put a name in here, but you could do Jane Doe. And then now you can see the name. Only, I guess, kind of tricky thing is if you put in Jane Doe, let's see, I think if you put it in here, it's going to say it's protected. So good. So that's my way of trying to make it foolproof. So you have to put the name in here. If you put it in any other cell, then it's not going to carry over. And then this should be protected as well, so you can't accidentally type over a formula. See how it has a formula here, which is connecting it. So I really try to make it foolproof. So let's see here, for instance, what if you wanted to type over the average? You can't, which is okay, because say you didn't really want to input all this weekly data and you wanted to just use it as a monthly chart. You're welcome to do that, because here's your month where you would enter that in. You may also want to, when you go to print the chart, this is going to show up pretty small, but oops, I'm going to hit cancel because I think I'm printing it. Oh, there's the print preview. It's going to show very small, but you can see as a parent, this really might be overwhelming to look at all of this data. So let me show you another quick trick. When I have my ARC meetings, I hide. Oops, not that data, but okay, so I left click with my mouse, and now you can see I've highlighted that whole row. I'm going to left click with my mouse here, where you see how it turned into a black arrow over here on the number 8. That's the row. And I'm going to left click and I'm going to drag down so that I'm highlighting selecting multiple Excel rows here. And I'm going to go all the way down to right before the chart, the space here. It looks like row 42 or so. And then somewhere in this gray area, I'm going to right click to bring up my menu and choose hide. So now when I go to my print preview and I want to print this for a parent or guardian, I just have the header information and then the bar chart itself. So a much easier way, visual way to communicate how their student, how their child is doing with their progress on their IEP goal. Now I want to bring that data back, so I'm going to, you can see how this row goes from 7 to 44. So I'm going to, again, left click with my mouse to highlight the row 7. I'm going to hold it down to go down to 44. It's not the end of the world if you go beyond that. Actually, you can. If you don't want to be so precise, I'll just do it that way. And then you can right click again in this gray area. Basically, if you right click somewhere else, you're going to deselect what you just selected. So you don't want to do that. You want to stay in the selected area to bring up your menu. Right click to bring up your menu and click unhide, and voila, your data comes back again. So that's been a tool. This is, I did actually accidentally unhide more than I wanted to by showing you that, but that's okay. This is just some rows that are necessary to create the chart. So you can leave those unhidden if you want, or you can hide them right back. They should be protected, so again, you can't accidentally type over them and mess the whole chart up. So again, try to make it foolproof. I really appreciate you watching this video, and I hope that you enjoy this tool very much. And thank you so much for your time. If you have questions, go ahead and post them down below. Thanks.